Welcome to the post-show debrief, and this is a day in which we witnessed a horrible tragedy at Fort Hood in Texas. 12 people killed, 31 wounded, nearly all of them soldiers, including the shooter. All of the casualties took place at the initial incident. It was contained, and still so many casualties. The attacker, the shooter, has been identified as Major Malik Nadal Hassan, a psychiatrist, by the way, who worked on stress-related issues for our soldiers. He was killed by police. Two other soldiers who had been initially detained in the shooting were cleared and released, but another person of interest is being held in custody. Fort Hood is obviously no longer in lockdown. Hassan was scheduled to be deployed to Iraq. He appeared to be upset about that, according to Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson. And while almost everything that we can say about this horrible, tragic incident is speculation at this point, it is clear that he is an American citizen. He is of Jordanian descent. And a great deal of speculation is already set in about the politics of his religion, and whether fairly or unfairly, that will be the case for some time until a lot of the complexity in this case is unraveled. It is also, without question, a terrible time for all of our soldiers, all of our troops serving this nation, because those who give so much to have this tragedy occur at one of our preeminent military bases, the largest U.S. military base in the United States, even compounds the horror of it all. Tonight we talked about what is happening here. We talked about it with Robert Bayer, a former CIA operative, Lieutenant General Russell Honore, and Dr. Jeffrey Lieberman, who is a psychiatrist, the chair of the Columbia University Medical Center in Psychiatry, who also consults for the Defense Department, and of course our own Barbara Starr, Pentagon correspondent. I want to say, first of all, each one of those folks went immediately to the deepest issues involved here. The stress that we're placing on our troops, irrespective of whether this was an act born of some religious beliefs, which it does not appear is the case. And by the way, I want to point out that CARE, the largest Islamic organization in the country, advocacy organization, immediately condemned these attacks. Whether it is the result of some stress, whatever it may be, it is clear in the minds of every single expert I talked with tonight that we are asking too much of too few of our men and women in uniform. We are asking of them 3 and 4 tours. Our military remains almost broken, or broken in the minds of many of our general staff and political experts, military experts in this country. And yet there is very little discussion of what is happening as a result of the so-called asymmetrical wars that are being waged in Iraq and Afghanistan. Tonight, Robert Bayer, a former CIA operative who served more than 2 decades in the CIA, said categorically that he believes that these troops, and all of that time in the Middle East, he believes that each of these troops goes through more stress than he did in his entire career. And he had immense resentment because of the fact that most people did not understand and were not aware of the sacrifices being made when he was in the CIA. He can only imagine, he said, the resentment on the part of many of our troops serving us in this great nation overseas. General Honore, to his great credit, talked about the fact that we need to do far better for our soldiers, and that we need to be asking far more of far more Americans, not just the few folks who are serving in uniform today. He said we've got to have a bigger army, and he's talking about broader sacrifices, and I truly believe for the good of the soul of the nation we've got to do that. And Dr. Jeffrey Lieberman, as I say, an eminent psychiatrist and expert on post-traumatic stress and the stress and the pressures of combat for our soldiers, he said clearly we've got to find a new way to care for our troops at almost every level. And one of the things that we talked about also was the fact that there's a limit to the number of people we can put in uniform in this country right now. 75%, according to the U.S. military this week, 75% of our youth in this country still is unable to serve in the military because they're either obese, they're unfit, or they have dropped out of high school, or they are in trouble with the law. Think about that. Only 25% of our youth are capable of serving the nation, this great nation, to which we all have an extraordinary duty. We have much to examine here, and I hope that from this tragedy, this is just one man's view. I hope that we'll all start getting really honest about what we're asking of our troops and serving us all around the country. Start asking ourselves, what in the world are we trying to do with a military that's far too small for the missions they've been given? And how can we rationalize what we're doing to our society? I'm going to be taking that up next week with our panel of experts on the psychosis that sometimes besets a society. And there is some indication that right now this society needs to deeply examine what we're doing and why, and come to terms with rational behavior if we're to have a future as a great nation, which I trust you and I will make certain is the case. Thanks for being with us for this post-show debrief. Our prayers are with those killed and wounded at Fort Hood, Texas, and their families. Good night.